Hello, 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 and welcome to movementandscience.com. Today we have a very special guest. I'm super excited, Miss Leslie Wright-Gall. If you are not from the Seattle area, you guys are really missing out on someone who is doing amazing things in the community. So I am super excited to have you here. Welcome to our show.
Thank you, Miss. Good to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So we have spoken several times for a long period of time about, body work and the results that we can get for our clients in relation to movement. So what I want to know from you is the first thing, I guess, is what is it that you do?
So I practice a technique called Fascial Stretch Therapy. I'm also a massage therapist, but the stretching is kind of my favorite thing, my go-to modality when I'm working with people. So it's just a gentle form of stretch. I manually stretch people on a big hydraulic massage table. But then we also talk about kind of what people need in terms of developing their own at-home stretch program. So while they're on the table, I'm kind of doing a postural assessment to see what's out of whack, where are the injuries, what are the areas that really need work and focus. So at the end of a session, we can go through and then help kind of decide what stretches they're going to do on their own and get them an at-home stretch program going. So yeah, that's it.
I mean, you say that's it. I have so many questions just from that one little bit. So if you want to start off with explaining to us what is fascial stretch therapy or what is fascia?
Mm-hmm. So fascia is the connective tissue that runs throughout the body. It goes from superficial, so all the way almost skin surface, to really, really deep. And it's all throughout the body, connects everything. It's pretty incredible stuff, and the science behind it is just now really developing and growing. So it's been incredible to see kind of how many neural pathways go through there and how it's kind of its own system of communication. Anne and Chris Frederick, the people that developed Stretch to Win, trained me in fascial stretch therapy, just like you did the class. And so they've done a ton of work on learning about fascia and how we can stretch and help people to kind of get out of pain and change their pattern of movement with stretch therapy. So it's just a gentle, gentle form of stretch. There's 10 principles that are kind of the foundation of what we do. So you're working with breathing and movement and really getting the breath before doing the movement. You're targeting the joint capsule on people. So Anne and Chris talk about a study done, I think it was all the way back in the 60s by Johns and Wright, where they talked about a lot of the lack of range of motion in people is coming from impingement in the joint capsule itself. So we use a really gentle form of traction to target the entire joint when we're doing the stretching. So, I think that part of the issue with stretch and just the word stretch is that so many of us learned that 10-second linear hold in PE class, right? And that's it. And so then that's what they're sent out into the world knowing. But with science and time and kind of practice, people have developed so much more information about what stretching can be. And with FST, you're working in multiple planes of motion, multiple planes of movement. You're not stuck or trapped in one spot. So you're really able to kind of explore where your tight spots are, use the breath and kind of rotational movement to target the joint capsule, as well as traction. And by doing that, you can just have massive gains without pain or strain.
That's awesome. So it sounds like when you are stretching people, it is going to look different from one person to the next.
Very, very different. I mean, we're all different. We all have different things that have caused us to be injured or that cause us to move differently. My hamstring stretch is going to look different than your hamstring stretch is going to look different than Joe's hamstring stretch. So absolutely. And a lot of that, it's about kind of finding your end range or finding your edge and then exploring that and staying within your limits of comfort. So part of it's really empowering, being able to say, okay, this is my end. This is where I feel like I'm not breathing anymore, or it's kind of a stopping point for me. And then backing up a little bit and staying within your comfort zone the entire time you're stretching.
I think that's really interesting that you just said that. I think it's an important note to emphasize is knowing that edge, backing off, and being able to breathe within that area. Because oftentimes, we see that a lot when we're in a sports arena where you have athletes preparing for a game, or even group fitness where people are stretching to the point where it's not painful, but it's that point of discomfort. And everything starts to guard and they start to bear down and they think that they're really getting something done in that range. So I thought that was really interesting that you say that. And I wanted to note that because that's the other piece of everybody's going to look different too, right?
Yeah. Well, and part of it, you just hit a point too. If you're pre-event, you're just about to go in and do a sport, it's going to be a different kind of stretching than it is when you're kind of decompressing and relaxing. So we talk about kind of cueing the correct nervous system too. So you've got the sympathetic nervous system and then the parasympathetic nervous system. And that parasympathetic nervous system is kind of the relaxed state, right? Usually when I'm in session with folks, I'm trying to get them there. So we're breathing deep and steady, really through the lungs, and trying to cue the movement with the breath. When you're pre-event, you just have somebody just about to go out onto the field, it's going to be a lot more quick. And you're trying to amp them up, right? So that's another thing. You can completely change the way that this stretch is happening depending on your body, your needs, and what you're about to do.
That's really interesting. So with this, you have a method or really an approach that you have if you want somebody to relax, decompress, maybe recover, versus, hey, I'm trying to get you ready for performance.
Yes, absolutely.
Interesting. And you mentioned the two different types of nervous systems, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Can you talk a little bit about what that is for just the regular person to understand?
Well, you and I had a conversation not long ago about kind of how so many of us are in that sympathetic state, that kind of fight or flight state where we're constantly on edge and so many things are being thrown at us. But that was put into our system so that you mentioned a lion. If a lion is coming, you're prepared, you have adrenaline, you're ready for that. So I think that we're in that state too often, which is why usually when I stretch people, we're trying to get down into that parasympathetic state where we can relax the system, relax the muscles, and really get into the stretch without causing pain or strain or making people feel like they have to go with things. I think we're in that too often in that headspace. So it's really, really good to have a technique that you can do on your own as well as in session with someone that gets you out of that state.
Yeah, we forget, I think, because we don't have that lion chasing us, we don't interpret the things around us as stressors. So, I joke, we're not running from a lion, but we may be running from our boss. So you constantly have that sense of stress, and especially in the environment that we're in right now, there's so many variables, there's so many question marks that we don't know what the next couple of weeks are going to look like. We don't even know what tomorrow is going to look like. Obviously we're optimistic and we will be fine, but that uncertainty is something that can drive up that sense of fear and get you into that fight or flight sympathetic nervous state. So what can people do right now to kind of deregulate and perhaps calm down a little bit and switch them into a parasympathetic nervous system or the parasympathetic nervous system?
Yeah, I think for me, just kind of moving my body is huge, and getting that body awareness where I'm breathing, being conscious of my breath and movement. Stretching to me it's relaxing. It helps me get in tune with myself. It helps me to notice and recognize the areas in my body that need some attention. And like I said, we're in that state all the time where we're go, go, go. And for me, I completely check out of, hey, what am I doing with my body? What's my positioning right now? Am I being wonky? Am I tensing things, you know? So just taking that minute to kind of relax. There's so many things right now where folks are really stepping up to the plate and saying, hey, we're going to give you free workouts right now, or we're going to do something online to help you. Deepak Chopra, I think I'm saying that right, and Oprah are doing a 14-day meditation where they kind of address the specifics of what's happening right now and try to get people to kind of relax and get back into center again. Bala Yoga is one that's in my area. So they're in Kirkland. I think they have a few facilities, but they're doing some online programs. I like to go on Amazon Prime and do yoga with Julia Marie. And she has just a whole bunch of different ones that you can do. But that's another one where it's like, hey, I'm in my living room anyway, and I might as well do something where I can kind of get back in tune with my body and just relax for a minute.
Yeah, so you just provided some really great options. And I think we have access to so many different things. We are having, I think, a sense of overwhelm with the amount of options that are open to us. So it's really great to kind of hear a professional that's in this industry say, okay, these are the places where I go myself to get centered, to use as a resource. And I think it's really, really interesting right now. We have a lot of fitness workouts transitioning online and transitioning to a virtual setting, but we don't really have much when it comes to recovery, maybe corrective exercise. Having those options as well for people is really important because it's the other element that we miss. So I think we're conditioned to going hard, getting the workout in, being awesome, but we're not really as good at doing the recovery piece. So that is really important. And I think this is something that we need to potentially add to our regimen. So if people are still pressed for time, because now we're still in that adjustment period, what can people do to keep their bodies healthy? Or maybe even if they have been with a fascial stretch therapist or a massage therapist or other type of body worker, to help prolong the positive impact to their body. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
What can we do to keep it going?
Well, I mean, I talked about developing an at-home stretch program before, and I think that's so key for people to know, okay, these are the spots in my body that I need to stretch, and these are the spots that when I go all day, they tend to get tight or locked up, and just knowing these are the stretches that I can do to combat that, and just kind of try to build that into your normal daily routine. I think before bed is a really great time when you're nice and warm and you're relaxing, great time to do just a handful of stretches. The Stretch to Win book is amazing for that. The whole back section is self stretches with descriptions. So a lot of the times when I have people come in for sessions, after the first session, when we start to, I tag on just 1 or 2 stretches at a time, so it's not too overwhelming. But I tell them that's such a good resource, because then you can mark your pages and know these are my stretches. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling tight, you feel like you need to decompress, it's just a great resource to go back to and do your self stretches again. I'm all about stretching. That's kind of my big thing. It's the thing I've been doing for years and years, almost 14 years now. And you said we have a multi-billion-dollar fitness industry, and stretching is just now starting to come into the center of that. It's crazy to me. We build up all this energy in our bodies by doing all these exercises, but where's the decompression side? Where's the feel-good side? And that's what stretching can really offer for you, is just that kind of decompress, relax, get back to center, and heal from what you just did. I don't know if I mentioned before on here, but it should be like a kitty cat and a patch of sunlight, right? It should feel good. They're clearly enjoying themselves when they're stretching, and we can too.